We have had the craziest 24 hours of news with the hospital bombing. So last night while streaming, I went over all the evidence because I'm an investigative journalist, and my definitive conclusion was that I didn't know, but it was probably Israel. And it turns out that a massive wrench has been thrown in that narrative. Okay. So I feel like I can't really summarize all of this in the most comedic way possible without spending 2 hours on it. But like the basic gist of it is this, okay? Israel, as we know, the IDF loves bombing civilians. Like that's what they get out of bed for. So the IDF loves bombing civilians, has already bombed hospitals, is currently bombing Gaza, had issued warnings to evacuate the area, like with the hospital in it, and then a bomb hits the hospital. And the bomb appeared to be much stronger than what Hamas normally uses. Who could have done this? We saw a video of the bombing, and that missile came in hot, like real hot, you know? Looked pretty deliberate, okay? And then like the counterfactuals start coming out, like who's actually responsible, because the counter argument is this wasn't Israel directly targeting a hospital killing 500 people. The argument was it was a missile fired by the Islamic Authority, and one of the missiles had misfired, and after misfiring the motor up and the missile then came crashing down and perfectly hit the hospital. On the face of things, how unlikely is that explanation next to Israel bombed it? Like, you know, again, Israel loves bombing civilians, has already bombed hospitals, currently bombing Gaza, warned about the area. It was the missile looked like it was an Israeli missile, didn't look like some little bottle rocket from Hamas. And then it's like, no, actually, like one of their missiles was really big, but it misfired. And like, okay, right. However, more stuff happened. Okay. So there were alleged posts that the Israeli government, the IDF, had taken credit for the bombing, but then quickly retracted when they saw the civilian casualties. That turned out to be false. It turns out that an Arabic language fan IDF spokesperson account reported the strike as being credited to Israel, and that got repeated by IDF sources, but the original source was illegitimate. Basically, IDF officials were so quick to claim credit for destroying terrorists in a hospital that they didn't fact check their own organization's claims. So, okay. Also, the Israeli Twitter account itself immediately tried to rebuke the accusation that they had bombed the hospital by posting a refutation which included video footage that was of the wrong time. They posted fake video footage. The video footage they posted was after the actual strike at the hospital. Then they quickly edited it and deleted the videos, leaving only the text explanation. Okay, so like, this seems like the most obvious Israel did it thing in the universe, right? Okay, so more information has come out, and some of it's very funny. And again, fog of war. I don't know what to believe. Like, I can't prove objectively real, whatever. But like, this is my impressions, okay? So, number one, this is the funniest piece of evidence by far, okay? In order to prove their version of the story, Israel's version, that what had actually happened was that a Islamic Authority rocket had misfired and careened down into the hospital, they released no shit what is allegedly an audio recording of two Hamas operatives casually discussing how it was their fault, actually. This is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Please look at this.
زي هيك والشظايا بقول لك أول مرة بنشوف الصاروخ زي هيك والشظايا هذه فبقول لك تبع الجهاد
Oh, sorry, Islamic Jihad, not Islamic Authority.
الصواريخ في الجهاد الإسلامي هاي إيه فهم بقولوا تعاون الجهاد الإسلامي
So, just hours after the strike, we have crisp, clean audio of two Hamas dudes on the phone being like, boy, that sure was our fault, actually. Haha.
مين اللي بيقول هيك؟ بيحكوا إنه الشظايا تبعت الصاروخ إنه الشظايا محلية مش زي شظايا.
They are saying that the missile that struck the hospital is not Israeli missile, but is in fact the missile of the Islamic Jihad organization.
سبحان الله من عندنا ما لقاش غيرين بجرثومي عاد هذول متلاقيين من المقدرة الورا دي بثلاث محط فيهم
and then they go on to, over trackable comm lines, talk about the location from which those missiles were fired.
الورا دي بثلاث محط فيهم بتلاقيهم طالعين من المقبرة الورا المستشفى المعمداني دي اللي هو فسه ونزل عندهم.
This is stupid henchman shit. Yeah, this is like Batman goons. This is like when you're sneaking into a warehouse and you look down at the scaffolding and there are two guys with flat caps going like, the boss said that we should be keeping the hostages in the back room. 2 doors on the left after you turn around. No friggin' way. That's where we're keeping the hostages. Like, that's the level that we're operating on here. I don't believe this for a fucking second. Quick question. If Israel is capable of looking into Hamas comms this well, how the fuck did Hamas surprise them with that attack a week ago? Seriously. Crisp, clean audio. Or are you telling me that Hamas normally operates on extremely secure lines and then for some reason this conversation was just had like on a cell phone? Yeah, okay, I don't believe this at all. Like not even slightly. Not even a little bit. I think that shit's fake. There are people who are saying that it's not the right accents. Obviously, I don't know. I have no clue. That anyone could say that. You know, I have no fucking idea what a Gaza accent sounds like. So the evidence is mounting. It's definitely Israel, right? But wait, there's one more piece of evidence. Actually, 2 more pieces of evidence that throw this entire thing up in the air. Like, just skyrocket this shit into the stratosphere, okay? So to be clear, everything that I've said so far, I completely believe. I think that audio call is fake. I don't believe that shit for a nanosecond, okay? However, there are 2 pieces of evidence that make the Gaza Authority look really, really bad here, okay? So number 1, and I can't show this, okay? I can't show this on stream because it's TOS, okay? But this happened apparently right after I ended stream, so I didn't get to go over it last stream, but it happened right after I ended stream. And the hospital reps at the site that was struck by the missile had a press announcement where a couple of the doctors were standing in front of the podium and surrounded, around them were dead bodies. There was a guy cradling the dead body of an infant right in front of the podium, and there were bodies slumped all around them. Now, I don't mean to sound disrespectful, like those are dead bodies, that was a dead baby, you know, that's really sad. However, that is the most callous fake bullshit I've ever seen in my life. Not the dead bodies. Those looked real. What was fake was, I don't think a hospital org would do that. Like, that's propaganda shit right there. You know, the idea of doctors whose jobs, like Hippocratic Oath, our job is to save lives, being like, let's pile up some bodies around this podium to make our little press statement look really, really bad. That looks suspicious because now it looks like you're stomping on the scales a little bit, going like, here, let's like present any information we can in any way possible to like skew how people perceive this. If 500 people are dead, if that's the claimed death toll, like, why would you need to do that? Like, there will be reporters there. There will be like 500 dead people. You can't dig that many graves in that amount of time. Like you don't need to oversell the case. So the fact that they were overselling it, you know what I mean? It's the same thing that Israel did. Remember when Hamas did kill a bunch of people in Israel, and then the Israeli Twitter account is putting out ads where it's like these extremely like disgusting gonzo shots of like blood splattered in a residential home, and it's like, this was a baby, you know? And it's like, I know babies died, I get that, but why the fuck are you presenting it that way? Again, look at Ukraine. Ukraine has suffered way more casualties than Israel or Hamas because of the size of the war, and Ukraine isn't like posting 24/7 yellow journalism like blood splattered on the floor shots because it's ghoulish and garish and it oversells the point and it makes it look manipulative and so on and so forth. I can't show it because YouTube TOS, but you can go look for it. You can just go look up the hospital and then like press conference or like announcement or something, and they just slumped a bunch of bodies together right around the podium. That's really weird, okay? But then the biggest piece of evidence that really makes the Gaza Authority, Hamas, look really, really bad here is this, okay? We got drone footage of the actual strike. Now, I saw multiple times the video of the strike in the hospital, and that shit was a big boom. I mean, that was a big enough boom that there was early speculation that an ammo depot of Hamas had been struck. I mean, that was like a big fireball that erupted in the night, you know? The missile struck here in the parking lot, and the damage of the missile strike on the parking lot seems to be like 3 totaled cars and a bunch of charring. This strike damage could not have killed 500 people. Flat out, not like, it's not possible. Maybe if the Palestinians had concentrated 500 people into a small cube right here, in which case this entire area would be red. It is not possible. What is this? This is drone footage of the exact place where the missile struck. Now, JDAM missiles, the ones that we initially thought Israel had fired here do not leave craters this small, okay? JDAM craters are big. Like, big. They're big, you know? So you're telling me 500 dead from a strike that hit a parking lot, and this was the crater left? What's going on here? Well, one potential explanation that still implicates Israel is that this was another type of bomb, not a JDAM. Maybe it was done in an airburst. Maybe there was some kind of, it was like a high flame, high shockwave, low structural damage bomb. That is not likely. First of all, it wasn't an airburst. We saw the explosion. Like, we saw the verified explosion. You know? Like, we saw that. So, unless by airburst we mean like 2 feet above the ground. Like, no. JDAMs are bomb, not missiles. Sorry, bombs. So, I don't believe that. If it was a different type of bomb or missile or whatever, if it was a different type of explosive, again, this begs the question, how did this kill 500 people? Again, if there were truly 500 dead, this whole area would be red mist. This is less than 24 hours after the explosion. It is not humanly possible to clean up the amount of human debris that would be present after 500 people got murked by an explosion not even significant enough to really dent the parking lot. I mean, you can see here, look, even these 2 cars right over here are barely scorched. Look like you could drive them right around, you know? Even the tiling over here, there's tiling that's missing on this portion of the roof, which is directly facing the site of the explosion, but the tiling that's facing even slightly away, minimal damage. Having seen that, and some other pictures of the site, I do not think the 500 dead number is correct. Keep in mind that number was issued before the possibility of any external verification. Between that and the really weird propagandistic number reporting from the hospital authority, I feel like they're throwing people for a loop here. Here's a pic of a JDAM explosion. Yeah, the fireball that we saw in the video didn't quite look like this either, but it was pretty big. Maybe this isn't the spot? Nope, that spot is verified. The hospital's location isn't a mystery. Other people have had enough time to get in there. We know for a fact that that was it. Could that have been the fuel in the cars? I can't speculate on the specific nature of the fireball because I'm not God. However, I do not buy the 500 number. If 500 people had died from this, there would be red everywhere. Like, you would have to have people laid out in the parking lot in a triage, because that's possible. It could have been 500 people if they were laid out, like, in the parking lot in a triage, like, really packed together. But if that's the case, there would be red everywhere. Everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. There's no way to have cleaned it, and why would they have cleaned it at all? It's good PR for them, you know? So it looks like basically no one was in the parking lot. How do we know there was only one rocket? Because we saw the video of the rocket strike. Wouldn't it vaporize the blood if it melts cars? No. So what you're saying is that this was Gaza? I don't know whether or not the explosion was the Islamic Jihad group or Israel. What I do know, or at least very strongly believe, is that the hospital lied about the casualties. I don't really know what the deal was with the initial explosion, but I do absolutely believe that the hospital lied about its casualties. So that's not good. Maybe a gas line blew. Whatever. No. So leave 1 point behind. Okay, leave the explosion behind. There is no way that killed 500 people. Zero chance. Okay. The only possible explanation for 500 people dead is if there was some like weird secondary thing that killed 500 people, like if it collapsed a part of a building and a bunch of people like got fallen in, or like something like that, or there was a big fire. But neither of those were attributed to the 500 deaths. The 500 deaths were stated to have been a product of the strike, and they would have mentioned like a collapsed building or a fire, and we would see evidence of it otherwise, because collapsed buildings and buildings that are on fire both leave evidence to it. So they lied about the number dead. The question is why. The answer to why is obvious, because it makes Israel look bad. But that leads to another question. How much have they been lying about their casualty counts in the past? See, I don't like to question orgs' casualty counts because A, how do I know? And B, that's kind of ghoulish, you know? Could Israel have lied about how many people Hamas killed? I mean, I guess they like could technically, but That's pretty easy for people to double check and verify, you know? And like, why would I challenge that assertion? Like, what do I have to gain, and how could I even make the claim, right? You know, like, there's no point. Could Gaza, could you know, the people of Palestine, could they lie about their casualties? They could. And they could get away with it easier too, because a lot of the people in Gaza are kind of stateless individuals. They're not like their existence is not officially codified into record the way that Israeli citizens are. It's not like every member of the Palestinian, you know, it's not like every person in Gaza has like a social security number to check up or whatever. So there are invisible people that you could just kind of gesture at and say, yeah, you know, people died. But 500 is such a massive overstatement that it makes me wonder if Hamas pressured the hospital authority to overreport that number. That would be really unfortunate, because at that point then it pretty much throws into doubt like every casualty number ever reported from Gaza. Now, a lot of the casualties that have happened in Gaza have been double-checked and verified by the variety of organizations that are present on the ground there, whether it be the United Nations or whether it be any number of like journalistic organizations. For the most part, casualties are pretty easy to verify because you've got dudes with microphones on the ground who go and check, and they're there, and you know, you have processes for determining the veracity of these claims. The hospital claim 500 dead was made in the dead of night and wasn't like checked until the next morning, because, you know, I don't think the UN wants to send an investigation team to a bomb site like at 3 a.m. You know, that sounds pretty dumb. If I guess what I'm curious is, did the hospital staff lie independently, or did Hamas tell them to do so? Technically, the hospital operates under Hamas because Hamas is the official government of Gaza. But in practice, my understanding is that Hamas, when we talk about Hamas, we're mostly talking about the militancy group, and that there are plenty of things that ostensibly operate underneath them and maybe technically do, but don't literally follow like daily orders by them and operate with some degree of autonomy. Much in the same way that we have many hospitals in the United States that technically are part of like a state or a federal government operation, but then like their day-to-day organizations are not like top down from the president or governor or whatever. So yeah, it really, really, really throws a lot of doubt into some of the larger claims that have been made, but most of the casualty reports have been double checked. So yeah, if this was Hamas trying to get away with an overstatement, that really hurts their cause. Like, that's really fucking bad. Obviously, none of this changes the logic of the overall occupation, and Israel is still indirectly responsible for the bombing, literally no matter what happens, because they created the conditions that led to it, and they're responsible for the overall genocide and the exodus and blah, 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 blah. So, in the broader scheme of things, the overall structural and systemic causes involved here are unchanging, regardless of the specific circumstances. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about and comment on this stuff as it happens live, because if you can't speak on, like, information in the propaganda war, then you can't speak at all. And we never will know for sure what happened in many cases, right? You wait for official like verification from an organization, but the IDF lies, and Reuters initially reported this as an Israeli strike. So how do you know when the information is done being like reported? Like right now, people are saying, you know, maybe we shouldn't have like rushed to conclusions. Well, maybe we shouldn't now. Maybe a week from now, more info comes out. You never know. The most rational thing you can do, the biggest brain thing you could do, is just you take the evidence you have at the moment, you say, well, I don't know for sure, but this is what seems most likely. And then as things go on, as the evidence changes, you update your conclusions or your assertions to follow from that. It's literally the definition of rational thinking. So, yeah, I don't really know who caused the strike because, again, there's a lot of shit that doesn't line up with it being a misfired Islamic jihad rocket. Like, a lot of that shit just doesn't seem to track for me. And I do believe that Israel faked the phone call that they recorded. But at the same time, it's like objectively undeniable that 500 people did not die here. Could it be a half lie thingy, like the hospital has counted since last week 500 deaths? If that's the case, that's still a pretty bad lie, though. You can't say 500 dead from strike, and then when you're probed on it, it's like, oh, well, 500 had died at this hospital, then a strike happened. You know, you can't do that shit. Yeah, I don't buy that. So TLDR is that both the Israeli government and Hamas lied to suit their narratives. We know for a fact that Israel lied because they were reposting misinformation and posting fake videos to desperately cover up. Because the thing is, if you're Israel or Hamas and a hospital blows up, you might not immediately know whether it was your guys or not, because the fog of war applies to them too, just not as much as it does to us. If you're like an Israeli official and you hear that a hospital got blown up because of your guys, but like, how do you verify that, right? You can't just like call the artillery guy or like the pilot or whatever and confirm. There's always like an independent verification process even within their org. So during that period of time, there was misinformation that was reposted by them and asserted by them, but I just don't, but I don't believe the death count. I don't believe the death count. Obviously, they are committing some crimes, but would you say Israel is actually using some degree of restraint? Well, yeah, of course. Like, if Israel was using no degree of restraint, they would just nuke Gaza. Yeah, but that's not praise. Like, saying some degree of restraint, Russia exercises some degree of restraint. If they wanted to, they could, like, butcher and every single Ukrainian civilian they come across, which they don't. They only do that to half of them. You know, it's so that's kind of like low praise. Yeah, I'm exercising restraint by not banning all of you, okay? Unironically, Alex Jones' take here. For what? Whenever the worst opinions are always from people with the little clocks next to their name. So they've come here in the past like hour or something. One time this guy I know said his mustache was itchy, but he actually just had a hair sticking up. Super weird thing to lie about. True. Just to clarify, you're saying it can't be a thermobaric missile because there's not a right? No, it can't be a thermobaric missile for a number of reasons. That's not even on the table. There was completely different character and visual evidence. A thermobaric rocket, like the whole point is that they create like a vacuum and then a shockwave that's far stronger than what you'd expect. There would be like, to give you evidence of how not thermobaric this was, look at these tiny little sticks still standing up in this roof over here. A thermobaric explosion over here would have vaporized, like the shockwave would have reduced this to, you know, to toothpicks. It's not even on the table. It can't be thermobaric. Hamas is turning the frogs gay. That is true. This was really funny. Sky News giving us quality content.
I'd also like you to address the question of credibility. Because frankly, the IDF has a less than perfect track record with the issue of credibility. Among other incidents, the Israeli government initially claimed that it was armed Palestinian militants who killed the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, which we know is not true. So why should the world trust you now?
Because of the importance of credibility. And
Vaush, the bodies would disappear after they die and they despawn. You're right. Gaza is like super underdeveloped. They probably don't have the processing power to render all those bodies. They would have to like despawn really quick. Yeah, that's true.
in the past, we had our
Vaush, even experts are saying it's inconclusive. Why are you taking such a hard light stance right now? Why is it? I feel like every time I say I strongly believe something, but I can't know for sure, everyone acts as though I'm making a definitive claim. There's nothing wrong with having a set amount of evidence saying the evidence leads me to believe this, but it might adjust in the future. Like that's literally like the objectively rational position. You never know when all the evidence is in. That's the only way to do anything. That's all decisions are made that way. Of course, to a point, everything is inconclusive. You never know if there's going to be some turnaround 20-year later expose on how something or another was different. The only thing right now that I'm really, really confident on is that the body count is just not true. I'm sorry. Dude, it's been long enough that they've literally had like drones and investigators at the hospital. If there are 500 bodies, where are the bodies? The bodies are physical. They don't actually despawn. That donation was a joke. There would have been people there who they could see the bodies. Where are the bodies? Like 500 bodies? That's a lot of bodies. In the rubble, is there rubble, by the way? No. They despawned, you idiot.
Ourselves were fast to go to conclusions. This is why in this event, we took the time. It took us more than 5 hours. We wanted to double check everything.
I'd also like you to address the question of credibility, because frankly, the IDF has a less than perfect track record with the issue of credibility. Among other incidents, the Israeli government initially claimed that it was armed Palestinian military.
Oh, wait, it replayed. Yeah, basically, he's like, I know we've lied in the past, but we super duper wouldn't this time. Maybe they didn't lie. Or maybe they're lying reflexively, even though they're right generally. I don't know. I really like that at the exact same time that Netanyahu and the Israeli government were trying to, like, you know, explain how they didn't bomb the hospital and they would never do civilian casualties or whatever, Netanyahu posted this from the Israeli PM account. The most Hitler of all posts that day, no doubt. This is a struggle between the children of light and the children of darkness, between humanity and the law of the jungle. Literally, like, we are humans, our enemies are animals. we are inherently good, our enemies are inherently evil. This is just like Hitler shit. It's like, oh my God, dude. This got like 40,000 quote tweets. And they had to delete it. The ratio on this was biblical. This was like one of the plagues. Oh, this screenshot has it. This was before it was deleted. 9.1 million views, 338 likes, nearly 10,000 quote tweets. This was, everyone correctly identified this as a section from Mein Kampf. This was immediately determined to be Mein Kampfy, you know? And you know, people responded in kind. So anyway, just very Hitler. How can you have so little self-awareness? Well, fascists are often very bad at understanding how they come off to other people. Like, this man is sick in the head. He's a diseased man. He's rotten. He's an infection on Israel, you know? Like, Israel, just judging by the general, like, polling in Israel, the average Israeli definitely has a decent number of Hitler particles in them. This guy's all Hitler particles, you know? His ability to, like... Remember that quote we were looking at? Where it was like, this guy was irritating Bill Clinton. Like, even 30 years ago, this guy was being an annoying blowhard to Bill Clinton. Like, this guy clearly doesn't have a good understanding of how he comes off to other people. He's been irritating U.S. presidents for 30 years.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with President Joe Biden today in Israel. The president made the trip to Tel Aviv to pledge U.S. support in person. The president also weighed in on a hospital explosion in Gaza, saying Israel...
Yeah, unfortunately, Biden was supposed to meet with the Palestinian Authority, but that got canceled because of the hospital strike.
Was not responsible, but Palestinians are blaming Israel right now. The finger pointing further dividing the two sides, and Madeline Rivera has more.
One day after a rocket strike at a crowded hospital in Gaza, President Biden says Israel is not responsible.
As long as the United States stands, and we will stand forever, we'll not let you ever be alone.
President Biden is pledging America's full support as Israeli forces gear up for the next phase of this war.
What I'm really looking for right now is I really want a I want an independent investigation on the death toll in that hospital. Boo Biden now. Nah, remember, we know for a fact that the people at the hospital were lying. This throws everything said by the Gaza Authority into disarray. We know they were lying about that death count. So like, I want an investigation into that lie. Like, I want that lie investigated, because it's really fucked up that they would lie about the death count. Because if you lie about the death count and you get called out in it, like it's found out that you've lied, no one will ever believe. Guys, people are going to like, now every single Israeli strike, it's going to be like, whoa, did it kill anyone? Or actually, did a static electricity from walking on a carpet happen to ignite a partially destroyed gas tank nearby? Like, and it's like, can we get independent investigation of the death count? And then the official death count for like the invasion of northern Gaza is going to be 4 because nobody says otherwise. Like, it's so fucked up to lie about the death count like that. I understand having an initial high estimate and then lowering it when you like have time to fully pick apart the bodies, but that was not 500. That wasn't even 50. If it turns out like whoever's responsible, oh, I'm really mad, dude. Whoever's responsible for that misinformation, whether it was the hospital staff themselves or whether it was Hamas telling them to lie, it could be either, you know, because again, it's Hamas, you know, they're not good. I want them held to account, okay? So IDF is likely still responsible, but the death toll was exaggerated. Well, I think it leans more towards it being a misfire now. Honestly, the evidence is really confusing in both directions. But the lying about the death toll thing really seems like, really skews the info, for one. And for two, it doesn't make sense that Israel would launch like a rocket or a bomb or whatever that would leave that little of a crater, you know? But Israel did lie about stuff, provably. So it seems like there's a lot of lies and not all of them even make sense, you know? It's like dealing with Russia, man. It's like dealing with Russia. Who do you think is most likely to become Speaker of the House? Netanyahu. Given the United States government's uncritical support for Israel, okay? They're going to suggest Netanyahu, and everyone's going to be like, guess we have to do it, or they're going to call us anti-Semitic, and Netanyahu is going to become the House Speaker, and we're only going to get the government funding bill passed contingent of us lending nukes to nuke Gaza with. And they're going to be like, I guess so. Guess we support democracy in the Middle East.
Mr. President, the road to victory will be long and hard.
The president meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his war cabinet on Wednesday to learn more about their plan.
The misinfo is crazy, especially on Twitter. It's literally insane. Right-wingers saying genocidal shit plus low context photos. Yeah, Twitter is basically like useless for getting info right now. I've said it before, but it's never been this bad. Twitter is like completely, and it's so bad right now that it's happening everywhere. Keep in mind, Reuters said that Israel striked the hospital until eventually they changed it to like, oh, who knows, you know? Like, it's so bad everywhere. Keep in mind, we're dealing with like maximal fog of war right now because the internet is down in Gaza. They have no electricity, they have no internet, and the IDF lies all the time. So like, it's really difficult, at least with Russia and Ukraine. Like, a lot of the stuff that, like, Ukraine is a poor country, but Ukrainians have smartphones. Ukrainian civilians and Ukrainian soldiers, you know, that can pretty easily broadcast what they're seeing and what's happening. And Ukraine also has, like, straight up the Intel network capabilities and support of NATO behind them. Like, one of the things that's allowed Ukraine to hold on under these circumstances is the fact that there are NATO, like, intel officers whispering in the ears of the Ukrainian military, being like, hey, this is, you know, this Russian general has their shoelaces untied, you know. Very, very helpful to them. It also means that we have a much better ability to understand what's going on. We don't have that kind of infrastructure down there in Gaza because most Americans don't give a shit if Palestinians die, so whatever. Even news orgs like Reuters are basically saying, maybe this happened? Maybe this happened? I don't know. I don't know. You know, like that, literally, like, everyone's like, yeah. I'm checking in with Reuters to find out the newest hard-hitting news. You check the latest article. We at Reuters are more or less certain that there is a place called Gaza. Things might be happening there, and Israel might be responsible. Check in later for more.
And press for aid to be sent into Gaza.
Israel will do everything it can to keep civilians out of harm's way. We've asked them and will continue to ask them to move to safer areas.
The second half of Biden's trip, a stop
1-to-1 for those totally real NATO comms that Russia posted. Oh yeah, remember those comms NATO posted where there are two guys speaking in English in thick Russian accents, where they're like, hello, Sergey, I am here to deposit NATO nukes. We bring NATO nukes into West Ukraine with NATO soldiers. 100 million soldiers and NATO nukes. Yes. And the Russian government was like, we have found evidence of... What is that voice? That's what they sounded like. Literally, that's literally what they sounded like.
In Jordan was canceled after a rocket struck a hospital in Gaza on Tuesday. Israel said it was the work of the militant group Islamic Jihad, which is trying to blame Israeli forces. Biden saying it appears Israel did not launch that strike.
And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you.
Other team. Did he forget the Islamic Jihad title? Like he wanted to say Hamas, but
there's a lot of people out there not sure.
The incident is prompting protests across the Middle East and renewing fears that other Iranian-backed militant groups could jump into the conflict, something Israeli forces say would not be a surprise.
They are concerned about their investment. They've invested millions and millions of dollars.
The last chance for like Hezbollah and other groups to get involved would be when the ground invasion of northern Gaza begins. We'll see if they do. U.S. vetoes Security Council resolution that would have called for humanitarian pauses to deliver life-saving aid to millions in Gaza. Cool. Abstain to Russia and Ukraine. It's not Ukraine, UK. What the Why would Russia abstain? Actually, Russia does have a weird relationship with Israel, so I guess that kind of tracks. Why would the UK abstain? That's weird. I would think the UK would be against if it... whatever. New, the Biden administration has privately been urging Israel to not launch a military campaign against Hezbollah as Washington works to keep the current war from spreading beyond Gaza. Two officials familiar with the matter tell. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. Like that, I could have told you that. We are providing aid, aren't we? Let me see. We're sending $100 million in humanitarian aid to Gaza and the West Bank.
I met with for some time this morning to agree to the delivery of life-saving humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza, based on the understanding that there will be inspections and that the aid should go to civilians, not to Hamas.
Yeah, Israel is approving aid to come through Egypt to Gaza on the condition that they check it. 100 million. Jesus. 100 million is nothing. Well, 100 million isn't nothing. Humanitarian aid is a lot cheaper than military aid, right? Like, if you go through the right sources, $10 can get you a lot of food and medicine, you know? But you need way more than $10 to buy a gun. Yeah. So 100 million isn't nothing, but it's nothing compared to what we're giving to Israel. Here's Russia's quote-unquote NATO radio communications. Oh, yes, please. Yes. Here we go.
Brainless retest. Give the wrong coordinates. They can't fucking determine it toward us. Waste of time. Have been showing us for several hours. Guys are dying. We can't evacuate them. It's just up. We don't even shoot back. Tell me coordinates.
It sounds like Tommy Wiseau.
Write down 47 points. 36186134 points. 7637248.
Oh, hi, doggy. Oh, hello, Mark.
It's not them. Who the hell knows? Let's check. Ukrainians can't do anything. They would have died long ago without us.
Hello, it is me, NATO. Stupid, pathetic, pig dog Ukrainian bastards would not have survived without our pig dog Western help, yes? Again, this was published by Russia. They were actually, like, proud of this. They put this forward.
Damn those bastards. I killed them.
Kill. Suka blit. I mean, bitch. Sorry.
Israel agreed humanitarian assistance can begin to move from Egypt to Gaza. Let me be clear. If Hamas diverts or steals the assistance, they will have demonstrated once again that they have no concern for the welfare of the Palestinian.
Yeah. Hamza Yousaf's wife, Nadia El Nakla, reveals her family trapped in Gaza were, quote, hit by a drone. Oh, shit. 2-year-old cousin in Gaza had been hit by shrapnel from a drone explosive as she warned time was running out to get humanitarian aid to Palestinians. She said her brother, an emergency doctor, had told her he had not been able to get home from hospital for 6 days as was not safe to travel, but he also can't bring himself to leave because they're having to choose now between who to treat. They don't have any supplies left. He's telling me there's death and devastation all around him. That was his words from last night. Ever since January 6th, conservatives have been calling it an insurrection and the new January 6th anytime anyone does anything in the Capitol building. Like, people died during January 6th. There were bombs present there, weapons. They stormed the building. There were calls to kill the a number of representatives. But now it's like, oh, you yell at someone outside the Capitol building? 1018, yeah. It's 1018. Yeah, I remember in January 6th when people peacefully entered the building and did calls to a ceasefire. I remember. Hold on, there actually is some big news here.
Well, there are real fears that...
Hello, Hollywood actor man. Looking pretty good for a news correspondent, huh? Jeez. Man, wartime correspondents are literally like the bravest people in the universe, dude. Can you imagine having, not, I'd say well-paying, but generally okay-paying job where normally you work in an office, and then every once in a while it's like, yeah, there's a war brewing, go right in the middle of it and ask some dude who's just been shot how he feels about what's going on. Yeah, serious props to Dylan Burns, who you should go support his Patreon, by the way, because it looks like his live channel has been irrevocably demonetized. Really f***ed up. He gets, like, spam reported by Russian bots or some shit. I don't know. You should definitely support him on Patreon. It looks like these protests outside the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon are happening as a response to the Gaza hospital explosion. If it turns out that the thing that escalates these protests to this point actually was just a fuck up, like after all the horrendous shit Israel has done, the thing that leads to this just actually happened to be the one oopsie doopsie, that would be very, like, cosmically funny. I don't know if it'd be actively funny, but in like a sort of God and his whims sense, it would be funny.
We saw dozens of people out there who were getting injured, getting carried.
I know that, like, the average citizen of Lebanon doesn't give a shit what I have to say. It is a really bad idea to direct antagonism against the U.S. Embassy. Directing antagonism against the U.S. Embassy has only ever had one consequence for the world, and it has been negative. It's just not a good idea. The best chance that the Middle East has for peace is getting America to be less supportive of Israel. Uncritical support of Israel basically guarantees that it will continue to act as it has. If America gets more critical of Israel, it makes it more likely that in the future they might change their behavior, because our support really does mean a lot to them. So you really don't want you really don't want America to think of Lebanon as an enemy the same way that Israel does. Why didn't they protest an Israeli embassy? I don't think there is an Israeli embassy in Lebanon. If there was, it would be like a smoking crater by now. Is there? I don't think there is. There's a U.S. embassy. I do not think there is an Israel embassy. Can you imagine, like, maintaining an Israeli embassy in Lebanon? How much would you have to spend on security? You would have to deploy half the IDF around it. Like, Christ. Didn't you know there's a Russian embassy in Ukraine? Yeah, but the circumstances are a bit different there. Though the Russian embassy in Ukraine does get a lot of flack. Like, they're always throwing cans of paint over the fence, you know? This mother looks like a war reporter in a movie. Like, this is the guy, like, here's the guy who's going to be working with you. It's this guy. Bellingcat, what's up? They're talking about the hospital strike. Hold on. I feel like I've already talked about this enough, but I am curious what Bellingcat has to say, because Bellingcat usually does really good wartime analysis, because they're so used to doing it with, like, Russia and Syria and stuff. An explosion at the alley. The ground surrounding one side of the crater shows a cone of scarring and pitting, consistent with the explosion of munition at that site. Objects within this cone appear to have suffered extensive damage, including a fence, which was largely destroyed. As noted by Mark Garlasco, a military advisor at PAX for Peace Protection of Civilians, the impact point does not appear to be consistent with the 500, 1,000, or 2,000-pound bombs used in the Joint Direct Attack Munitions, the JDAMs. We created a panorama showing the impact crater based on the video above, which helps show the affected area. Yeah, this is not a JDAM strike. I've seen here, hold on. I've seen what a JDAM strike crater looks like, and that is not it. Here we go. This is the larger JDAM. This is 2,000 pound. As you can see, the crater is like an actual literal crater. They're big bombs. Yeah, here we go. A video posted on Tuesday night shows a grassy area adjacent to the hospital covered with dead bodies. Oh, I saw this. At least 24 bodies are visible in this video. Bellingcat is not linked with the video due to its graphic nature. Palestine just has such strong road infrastructure. Oh, true, because the Gaza Strip is what walkable urbanism looks like. So naturally, they would have, like, really strong, like, parking lot pavement bricks, right? We geolocated another video posted on Telegram early Wednesday, which was filmed in the same grassy area and shows the site in daylight. The grassy area is located at these coordinates. This was the video in the dark where people said this is where the bodies were. So it would be this. So they geolocated it to be this square. So where's the crater? The location of the crater marked in purple. Okay, that's where the crater is. And then this is where the bodies would be, about 24 bodies. In a press conference Wednesday, the IDF spokesperson said they outlined the analysis of the blast. He also said no craters could be identified at the site. You called this picture fake? No, I said I didn't know if the video was real. Yeah, Hamas just lied. It's not that complicated. It is complicated because we also know that Israel lied. And also, the videos really made it tough to believe that it was just a random, like, munition misfire. Really complicated. The thing that mostly f***ed me up is the lying about the death toll. I really want people to be held accountable for that.